Information Radio, AM 1420 and FM 102.7 KTOE.
Welcome back, KTOE, Al Travis, 1420, 102.7 FM. The phone number to get on the show is 507-625-1420. We're going to go to line 2 and put a friend on the show. Jack, thank you very much for being available for us today. How are you doing?
Good, Al. How are you?
Good. Can I do the shameless self promo for you? I sit here and I tell these three gentlemen, we have Representative Munson, Senator Frentz, and Congressman Hagedorn all in the room, and I say we're going to call Jack Zimmerman. Every one of them had a story about you. There's something about Jack Zimmerman and the way you run your life that is different than I think most everyone else. I thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Well, thanks, Al, for having me. And Senator, Representative, and Congressman, how are you guys doing? It's great to talk with you guys again.
Good, Jack.
Yeah, it's great to hear your voice, Jack. I'll tell you what, you're an American hero, and you're showing great courage in your life. And I just, everyone that meets you is just so taken with not just your story, but everything that's Jack Zimmerman's.
Well, thanks, Congressman. You know, I went through some tough stuff in my life, and I had to do a lot of stuff that, for this country that I'm really proud of. And, I think that, when those bad things happen, it's what you do after that really makes a difference. And I'm trying to make the most out of my life and trying to impact some people along the way, too. So,
Jack, you make it sound like at some point in your life you stubbed your toe. This is not what happened to you. For folks that do not know the Jack Zimmerman story, you were, I believe it was, if I remember right, an electrician or were working for an electric company and then decided you wanted to join the service. And I believe it was because of 9/11, correct?
No, not really. I was actually in middle school when 9/11 happened, and then got out of high school, went to college for a year, and tried that out, and found out college wasn't for Jack. And I started as an electrician, and from there I went down to recruiter station, and I wanted to serve my country, and went to Fort Benning and became an infantryman and jump school and all that. And while I was in Afghanistan, I stepped on an IED over there and was flown down to Texas where I rehabbed down there, and just moved back to Minnesota in late 2012, and I have a wife and 2 children now, and we live just outside of Mankato. And this year is going to be my year. I'm actually I'm going full time doing the speaking thing, and
Jack, take a breath. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. You go through this. I joined the service, went down to Fort Benning, and did the thing. You didn't just join the service. First off, you ended up becoming an airborne ranger with the 101st, right?
Not a ranger, just an airborne infantryman.
Just a guy who'll jump out of a perfectly good plane.
Yeah.
For your country.
2 things that fall from the sky, bird stuff and airborne, right?
Okay, so then you head over to Afghanistan, and you just throw out, and I stepped on an IED, and then I came back home, and I got rehab. There's much more to this. You stepped on an improvised IED.
Explosive device, yep.
Thank you. Both of your legs are completely blown off.
Yes.
And I want to say 3 fingers on your right hand? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's tough to teach so I have a 5-year-old. It's tough to teach. It's been tough teaching him how to count when I only got 7.5 fingers and toes.
Yeah, you can't take your shoes off and count your toes
Jack
either.
has perhaps the best sense of humor of anybody I've ever met. I mean, your sense of humor is just unbelievable.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you have issues raising your children. I got that. But you're confined to a wheelchair, or I mean, you're not confined because you get out of it, but you use a wheelchair to get around. It doesn't hold you back. I've seen pictures of you 5 and 6 days after, being blown up as they're rehabbing. So how long did it take you to rehab and get yourself to a point where you're up and moving and not in constant pain?
Yeah, I spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and then I spent about a year and a half total trying to rehab myself. My right hand was damaged severely, and I was right-handed before, so I had to learn how to learn how to rewrite, eat, everything, and that's when I talked to a lot of people, and I said, when people are setting goals, I went from being an infantryman in the U.S. Army, you could deploy me anywhere in the world and I would win, to trying to touch my nose so that as soon as I could touch my nose, I could eat again and I could drink again and I could do those things, and so when setting goals, it's so important to just realize where you're at in your life and what needs to be done.
You and I talked about this. This changes the trajectory of your life. I mean, everyone has something that makes them who they are, but this changes the trajectory from electrician to I want to be an Army guy to now where you're at today because of all that you went through. You do motivational speaking, right? Someone gets on your website. How do they get you to come in and talk about how you get through all this stuff?
Yeah, so if you wanted me to come to your corporation or your school or wherever you want me, you can go to jackzimmermanmn.com, JackZimmermanMN.com, and that's where you can find all my information. And I'm on Facebook at Jack Zimmerman and Instagram and Twitter at Jack Zimmerman 23. So.
And for folks to get to know you a little bit better, you did just start a podcast, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a video podcast.
Actually, I'm speaking to you from northern Alabama. I'm down here doing a little fishing. I had to get out of that cold. It was just too cold up there for me. And so I'm down here fishing with some Army buddies and some friends of mine. And as I've been working my way down here, stopping in Kentucky for a few nights, stopping in Tennessee for a few nights, and now in northern Alabama, I've been shooting some podcasts. And we've been trying to roll that out for the last week, but to be honest with you, I'm not the best with technology, and the back end work of building a podcast is extremely extensive. But I hope in the next week or two we have this thing rolled out, and really it's just me sharing a bunch of stories with my friends and letting you in on some of the conversations I'm having and what makes me and my friends tick and why we do what we do. And I meet so many cool people. I thought I need to share this with the world. So
good.
Yeah, and this is Jeremy. Jack, how are you doing? This is Jeremy Munson. I just want to say that Jack Zimmerman is probably one of the most inspirational and motivational people that I have met. And if anybody has a chance to have Jack come in and speak to them, if you run a company and your employees are lazy, you bring Jack in there, and they're going to say of all the stuff Jack has done. Jack travels around the country, hunts down lions and bears or what he is he is absolutely motivational to get your workers moving.
Absolutely, that's fantastic.
And I have a question for the representative and the senator. So now when I'm on my Segway, am I going to have a distracted driving zone here to still pass?
We're bringing an amendment to specifically exempt the Segways, Jack, just for you.
Yeah, if you need me to testify, just let me know.
The Zimmerman exception.
Yeah, and for those of you who have not met Jack, his main mode of transportation is a Segway with the pole taken off and where he sits on and balances on two wheels. It's an amazing device,
cool
and Jack has worked with the manufacturer to get these great modes of transportation to disabled veterans around the country.
It's pretty incredible. It's actually an organization out of St. Louis called Segs for Vets that. I still have number 3. That's the chair I use the most in my life, the third chair ever made. And it's by far the biggest piece of technology that I've used in my life. And the other piece that I use everywhere I go hunting all over the country is from the Independence Fund down in North Carolina. And that's my track chair. I get out in that thing and I can hunt and go all over the place with that. And, it's a pretty special group of guys that I work with down there, too, that do motivational speaking with them, too. So I'm just lucky to be able to travel all over the country and meet so many great people. And to have the opportunity to share my story is very therapeutic for me. And maybe I can affect somebody along the way. And I've just been given so much opportunity since I've been injured to go out and meet people. I'm just truly the most blessed guy in the world.
Jack, I thank you very much for calling in for us today and being with us today for this first show that we've done. I appreciate it, Jack.
Yeah, Al, it's great to hear you on the radio. It's a good place for you.
Good
Thank
luck
you,
to you,
Jack.
Jack. We'll see you at the Mavericks game.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. We'll talk to you guys soon. And Al, thanks for having me. And again, if you guys want to get a hold of me, go to jackzimmerman.com.
He's a good promoter too. Thank you, Jack. Back to talking with, because I'm not going to have this opportunity very often. Congressman, I appreciate you coming in. I would like to share a story that I read in, I suppose, the Free Press or something. But your dad was the representative here. I don't think it was the first, then it was the second or something in the 70s, right?
1974. He was
74.
elected. I think he was the only new Republican elected in the Watergate year, 1974. Okay. So the whole state of Minnesota.
I want the inside stuff. You get the stuff you see, but here's what I didn't have any clue on, and it struck me. So you go to Washington, you voted in, you go there, and somebody says, "Hey, we're picking offices today. Grab a number out of a hat or something." I don't know how they decide to do this.
Yeah, it's kind of how they do it.
No, not really.
Yeah, well, the offices for members of Congress, members of the House, are all based on seniority. So you get all the way down to the freshmen, and then you have a class like we did of about 85, 86 people, and you draw a number out of the box, and that determines what order you get to select the remaining offices. So I selected 45. I guess the senator would say that's the Trump number. I don't know, but 45, and then you commence and you start.
So we're in 2019, the greatest country in the history of the world, and they're drawing numbers out of a hat.
20. Yeah, it was last year at orientation, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the cooler part is you get 45. And you decide if it's available. You got your dad's old office, and I think that's just kind of really cool that 45 years later, you actually got your dad's old office.
Yeah, we're in 325 Cannon. It's the same office he moved into 44 years ago, and it was great. My father was there at our swearing in, and he was there when we moved into the office. So really, really exciting and neat. And in 2 years, the Cannon building, each 2 years, one of the wings is being remodeled. So our office will be remodeled in a couple of years. But if we're able to stay in office when they fix it up, I get the first dibs to go back to it, and I think we will.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, can you give us any inside skinny on the cool stuff that happens when you become a congressman? I'm sorry, not that you guys haven't great, but you get to Washington. Tell us the coolest thing. The first vote you had to make, you probably weren't happy with.
Well, yeah, that was for Speaker of the House.
So that's what I'm saying. So you didn't get that. Didn't
that's
work
the
out
most
so well,
actually. That's the most consequential vote anybody ever casts. It's that first one to organize the body, and I voted for Kevin McCarthy, the Republican, and Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat, happened to win that one. But in a couple of years, we're going to try and hold this seat and get back about 20 more and try to take back the House for the Republicans.
Is it what you thought it would be, though? I mean, your dad knew. You kind of knew what was going on. I guess if they haven't changed drawing numbers out of a hat in 200 years, they probably haven't changed much more.
It is. I mean, being around it when Dad was in office and then working for Congressman Stanglin, as I did in the 80s, you kind of understand what's going on. But there's always lots to learn, and you have to put a staff together in offices. We'll have our Mankato office up and running here pretty quickly.
That's what I was going to ask you about. You do have
we'll have one in Mankato and one in Rochester, and we're doing everything we can to connect up with our local officials like Senator Frentz and Representative Munson and Senator Draheim and the rest of them, Senator Rosen, to make sure that we can work together to help our constituents.
What can constituents get from your office? I mean this, I live in Mankato. I got a beef with something. I call your office. I buzz on down there and I sit down and say, what? I mean, what can I get from my congressman?
Sure. I mean, everyone that's elected in the U.S. House, one of their major responsibilities is to help people in their district that have some interaction with government where they either need something or they think that, something needs to change. It could be a Social Security issue, an immigration thing, could be an agriculture problem. And so, they come to our office. We're going to have caseworkers and others there to listen to their concerns, and then we will interact with the federal government on their behalf and try to get them an answer. We'll do what we can to get a positive answer, but the main thing is to get that concern addressed. So that's the main thing. I think that Congressman Walz and his staff did a good job. I think Congressman Penny, when he was in office, did a good job. I hope my dad and Gil Gutnick and the rest of them did. And that's we're just going to do the basic work for the people. It doesn't matter who they voted for or anything like that. That's our job and our responsibility.
It's interesting because I think that makes sense, but we had three other normal Minnesotans in the room. You often call the congressman's office? I mean, you're political. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that that's ever happened in my lifetime that I've...
Well, first of all, I was very pleased to see two representatives of Congressman Hagedorn's office come into the Senate building and meet with me this week. And
really?
They were both the constituent service people, and that's what democracy includes, which is representing everybody in your district, no matter who they voted for. Two very nice Minnesotans, and now I have a connection, and if we have something where we need to call the congressman's office, I know who they are. Also, we're going to have an office in Mankato. Thank you very much for that. So that's constituent service, and we have it in St. Paul in our own ways within our own districts.
Yeah. And I have people come to my office all the time asking about issues that have to deal with federal changes, or they have veterans
Let's go to
issues.
the wrong
And
office.
so,
They're
yeah.
coming to talk to you.
And so I've worked with Walz's office in the last session to work through some issues. Got issues with riverbank erosion that kind of touches on, is it federal or state, and trying to work through these issues. And I too sat down with Congressman Hagedorn's staff this week to talk through how we can partner with constituent services. That's really important. I myself have called Walz's office a couple times to complain about my health care costs when I was a mad voter.
Okay, well, there might have been one. There you go.
I also called to get tickets to the inaugural ball or the inauguration of the president. For some reason, he wasn't hoarding tickets to Trump's inauguration, but I did get some from his office.
Should have sold them.
That's funny. What is it? Speaking of which, is there something off the top of your list on the committees you're on that Representative Hagedorn could do for you? Is there something we should look at? For me, I'm not a farmer, but this whole idea that we needed 50 foot of drainage or whatever from the waters, and I'm like, is there something that says 50 feet's the right answer? Was 20 the right answer? The other 20 is just, is that buffer? Is that something we could look at? I mean, what is it that you could get from the congressman who's on the ag committee
That's
that's
actually a state issue. So,
but waters of the U.S. or something? I mean,
waters of the U.S. I mean, I think what President Trump's done on that has been exactly right. It was an overreach by President Obama. No way in the world Congress of the United States ever intended, through the Clean Water Act, to have the EPA come out and regulate every puddle, and put the federal government in a position where they could come in and have influence over farmers and small business people and property owners. And so I was totally against that and thought it should be defunded or defeated any way possible. One of the fixes that I support is to make sure that the House and the Senate have to affirm major regulations before they are implemented. That's called the REINS Act. The Republicans have passed it many times in the House. The Senate and the Democrats kind of held back. But I think that's a fix that would make sense. If you can't get it through the House and the Senate, and they're the ones that write the laws, it shouldn't be a regulation.
good.
Well, first of all, it's a state issue on buffer strips, and I actually came out during the campaign in 2016 a little bit against Governor Dayton's rollout because I didn't feel one size fit all. But as far as what the congressman can do for us, I still think it starts in southern Minnesota with agriculture, and I think everything we can do to support our farmers, whether it's regulatory reform, tax policy, especially now with commodity prices where they are. That if I only got to ask for one thing, that's what I'd be asking for.
And I'm going to get you. Go ahead, Cody. I'm going to make a note to bring up my thought. Go ahead.
Okay. My big ask of the federal government now would be on prescription drugs. I would love to have major reform for prescription drug prices, allowing us to re-import drugs from other countries so that we would stop subsidizing the rest of the world for pharmaceuticals. It would drastically decrease the cost of us for our pharmaceuticals in Minnesota and everywhere in the country, and it would be a great change to bring competition and price transparency into pharmaceuticals. That could be done at the federal level.
So I suppose these two can speak to you, and you could be that voice there when everybody's chatting about it. Is that it?
I think we'll work together on issues, and we'll cooperate as best we can. We all have our different ideas and philosophies, but on the prescription drugs, the reimportation of drugs, I don't know if I really subscribe to all that, because what you have are socialist systems that browbeat the companies, drive down costs, and then all of a sudden we're subsidizing it now. It's not good. But what I like is something where you have, let's say, the hepatitis C drug that was developed and it costs $75,000, but you're cured, and it's a heck of a thing. Saves a lot of money in the medical care system, healthcare system. Maybe the federal government should have bounties for drugs like that. Make those companies whole so they can drop the price down for the regular, American customer, and maybe we can solve some of those problems that way. But you've seen it in Minnesota and elsewhere with the price of insulin skyrocketing. It's a problem. I understand it, and I think you, of course, the two of you see it every day because you're here really with the people each and every day. And unfortunately, they send me out to Washington too much. But
let me throw this out: the tariffs, China, trying to get that. Obviously, it would help us, may in the long run help us a ton as a farmer here. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I'm going to ask people if they want to talk with any of these three. We have Representative Munson, Senator Frentz, and Congressman Hagedorn in the room. 507-625-1420. We for or against this whole tariff battle? Because it's interesting. If we win, it's great. But if we don't, our farmers are being beat up.
I guess I would say from the state perspective that I did not have a lot of farmers in my district worried about Chinese intellectual property theft. And I'm waiting to see, I think, just like we talked about the House and Senate have their prerogatives, the president has his prerogative, and we'll see how it turns out in the end. At this point, most of the people in my district would take a truce just to call it off and go back. We'd see a bump in corn and soybeans, and I think that would be helpful.
But is that not short term? The only farm I golfed with a couple of farmers. We're sitting there having a beverage, and I asked him when this thing first started. He goes, "You know what? In the short term, this is horrid. This will be bad." But he was looking at it and he said, "But if we win this, you open 1/7 of the world's economy to these farmers." He's seeing it as a short term loss. You guys?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm a Republican. I believe in smaller government, and I've always been for free markets. I prefer free markets over tariffs, and so I'm a free trade, free markets guy. And I know that we've been getting beat up by all the other countries, and what President Trump says about the other countries taking advantage of us is absolutely true. And we can't continue to lower tariffs while they maintain theirs. And so what he's doing, the strategy he's using, it has a very great potential of working, and I think he should continue to do it. It's painful in these months or a year or 2 years that we have to go through this. But I think ultimately it's going to allow everybody to lower their tariffs and have free markets.
Now, is that what your constituents think? You guys are out here running around.
Well,
You're a Republican.
We just ran an election, and I told everybody that I'm not a big tariff fan. I think that they're good for the governments that impose them and the industries they try to protect, but they have diminishing returns. And but President Trump, he ran on this issue, and he said China was stealing our intellectual property, as the senator says, that they were manipulating their currency, that they were cleaning our clock in many ways. And he said also Mexico, Canada, and other countries had an advantage. He wanted to fix it. So he's gone out there, and we have a new agreement with Mexico and Canada. And the ag groups and others think that that's pretty good. I intend to vote for it unless somebody can show me why I shouldn't. And with China now, it looks as though there might be some movement, and by March 1st, we could have some sort of agreement. At least that's the plan, or that's the goal. And I think in the end, we have to drop the barriers. We have to expand the markets and do everything we can. But the people in agriculture, the farmers, I'd say 19 out of 20 of them that I spoke with, they stuck with the president. They stuck with the Republicans because before there was a war or a tariff war, there was a war on agriculture by the liberal left wing of the Democratic Party on things like waters of the United States and regulations, the Obamacare, which was crushing them, energy policies they were driving up, and I think they wanted something different, and that's what they have with us. But I don't mean to get too partisan here, but that's kind of where we are.
Let me ask you, it's the DFL, it's the Farmer Labor Party, and how do I put this? Most of us, and again, talking for all regular guys, we never thought about tariffs much. Then when all this comes out, I had no clue that Canada had like a 700% tariff on milk. That kind of screws the Minnesota milk guy, and I'm like, I didn't know that. You guys have to be up on all this stuff, which I give you credit for doing it. But were most of your constituents like me just shocked that this was going on? I guess we all knew China bad. I mean, China was doing this. I had no clue Canada was messing with us like that.
Well, Canada has strict limits on how much milk farmers can produce. You actually have to buy a contract with the government in Canada to deliver milk. So based on how many cows you have. It's a very button-down system, socialist system that they have for their milk production. So that's why they don't allow milk to come into their country.
Okay, but I mean, I didn't know. You knew this? My eyes were wide. I'm like, really, 700%? That's nuts.
Well, first of all, as far as dairy goes, our dairy farmers in Minnesota got a break in the farm bill. That's a good thing. We also have that particular industry under a little bit of pressure, which has to do with the need greater in dairy to grow or have competition issues. But I would say this on the tariffs. It's less clear to me that the United States has been taken advantage of to the extent necessary to put these tariffs out there. I'm not an economist, just a lawyer from Mankato. So we'll see in the result of the negotiations. My question was, when we had the World Trade Organization, which we formed and we got China into, we won like 80% of our claims. So I would just ask the question for all the countries, what's wrong with having an arbiter there? Why can't that be good enough for us? At the end of the day, what I hear is the price of corn and the price of soybeans. So we'll see.
But the price of corn, the price of soybeans for about 5 years, the commodity prices have been low, the input costs have been high. Our farmers have struggled going back to the middle of the Obama administration. It wasn't necessarily President Obama's fault. That's just kind of the way it works. So I agree that you had countries like especially Mexico, Canada, and China, and they're going back after our farmers because they know that's where our pressure points are. But so far, the farmers have said, stay the course. Let's get this done. Let's work it out. Let's make it better like you did with Canada, Mexico, Korea, the European Union, and let's hope it happens with China. But I will also say they don't have unlimited patience, and we need to have this resolved as soon as possible. That's the message that I sent the White House just about a week ago, actually.
Amen to that.
Okay, absolutely. And again, I just don't know that the rest of us spend much time in these fields. And you guys, I hate to say it, you got to be jack of all trades. I mean, you talk transportation. I know how much, as a lawyer, you're a transportation guy before you got hired on. You guys just have to figure all this stuff out. I presume transportation is another thing between 35W Falls, whatever it was 10 years ago. That's a federal thing, wasn't it? That 35 a federal trunk highway, isn't that?
The bridge?
Yeah, the bridge.
Yeah, no, they were in the middle of it, but there were some state aspects of it too, the overseeing of some of the projects. But
again, back to where you guys can help each other out.
Cooperation between federal and state. By the way, my position on transportation is take as much money from Washington in the funds and send it back to the states, so people like the senator and the representative and Governor Walz and others can figure out how to spend that money most efficiently here at the local level.
All right. It's 2.5 minutes, so you're all going to get just moments. You say they send us money back, Representative Hagedorn, but Governor Walz would like a tax increase. Now, I thought I read 25% on the gas tax to make us whole. We were talking off air. It might be 20 cents to get us to that $600 million or whatever it is a year. Yes, no, is that going to happen? I got 2.5 minutes. Are we going to get a gas tax increase while we have $1.5 billion left over in the budget?
Well, I'm in the minority in the House, so I have very little say. But if there is to be a gas tax, I will be voting against it and trying to throw every single amendment on that thing I can to try to tank it from passing the House, including preventing the dog from sitting on his lap while he's going down the road.
Oh, okay.
Well,
distracted driving the damn dog.
As a member of the minority in the Senate, but serving on the Senate Transportation Committee, I would support an increase in the gas tax. The American Society of Civil Engineers has given us a C- on our roads and a D+ on our bridges. We're talking about the two parties roughly agreeing that we're $600 million short over the next 10 years. And if we have another bridge go down, it's not going to be a question of if we have an increase, but how much. I think we can work within the parameters of divided government, find some compromise, maybe make some deals, and get it done. Margaret Anderson Kelleher, who's the new MnDOT commissioner, just happens to be a Mankato West grad. We met this week. She got some ideas. It's time for some leadership.
Right. And Representative Hagedorn, before we leave, I think it's 18.5 cents a gallon tax is federal. Are you looking at pushing that back down? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I don't think they're going to look to change that. At least I don't support a gas tax increase. It's disproportionately affects the folks here in the rural areas. And, I think you have to find some other way to deal with this. But roads and bridges. Let's get that done, and then let's worry about some of those expensive
15 seconds,
Metro
Representative. You got it?
Yeah, the gas tax disproportionately impacts rural Minnesotans because we drive less efficient vehicles and we make less money per average. So it's a tax on rural Minnesota.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. I'm going to throw it back to you, Dusty.
All right, thanks, guys. It is 5 o'clock here from, KTOE Mankato, AM 1420, FM 102.7, and online at KTOE.com. It's time for ABC.